It's an honor to be here with you today to discuss the road to advancing technology for diabetes and our 640G new product, our new launch, our really exciting way to deliver better outcomes for people with diabetes. So we've been on a road to improve diabetes technology for quite some time. After all, we are a technology company. And once we had pumps and sensors and could bring them together, it started to make a huge difference for people with diabetes. I have a slide deck that you'll be able to share and see with me. And I'm going to kind of talk through some of these slides to give you the information, I think the excitement that we all feel about this launch of a brand new product, a brand new category, and I think a brand new day for diabetes. So the title of this entire slide deck is called the Closed Loop Technology. It's really about that road that we have taken and that road that we hope you will join us on that will enable our patients to really take advantage of what today is really about. This is a technology revolution for all of us, and this is a technology revolution for diabetes. So the first slide kind of shows the advancing technology devices that we have at Medtronic Diabetes and kind of how they can all be placed on patients and all fit together. But of course, these devices don't just show up for our patients. They require a long road of development, some hurdles that have to be overcome, and regulatory requirements that I think are critically important to assure both efficacy and safety for our patients. So the first thing is that we develop devices. Obviously, as you can imagine, we have a huge, robust R&D program here at Medtronic Diabetes. A lot starts, of course, with what are the unmet needs? What are the proof of concepts that we can come up with that we can do in a very early phase of development and weed out what seems to be the best and go forward with that. Those are followed by a series of actual clinical studies, feasibility studies that say, for example, with the 640G product, how will a predictive low glucose management system actually make a difference for our patients? We develop protocols, we recruit sites. We've been very fortunate to have many of these sites be in Australia. It's been a wonderful collaboration between many of us and many investigators throughout Australia, including patients out there willing to come forth to enter clinical trials. So we go through those studies, we show that what we think will happen with something like a predictive low glucose management system actually does happen. Then in the US, we're met with a real important interaction with our Federal Drug Administration, our FDA. We develop a very specific study that they will agree on that will allow us to release this in the US. And of course, this will make a big difference for patients all around the world. We eventually need studies that show that reimbursing, paying for these new devices is a benefit for the patient and for the system in which that patient is embedded. In Australia, of course, you have a universal system. I'm personally envious of that. And we're working our way in the United States to get close to what you've been able to deliver for your population for quite some time. Then we do studies afterwards to expand the indications for these devices. And then by the time we're done with that, and actually even before we complete that cycle, we're on our way to the next advance so that we can have a cadence of renewal, a cadence of advancement for your patients and make a difference that way. So the next slide really kind of talks about that we've entered the stratosphere with all this. We're out in outer space trying to develop the evidence, develop the partnerships and the support materials so we can actually get these devices onto people in a safe and efficacious manner. So it's been a journey, and this is my mountain slide. I love this slide that talks about what are we really trying to do. Of course, we're trying to improve the outcomes of our patients. We're trying to reduce hypoglycemia, particularly first with our VEO system and now with our 640G system. our predictive low glucose management, can we, by stopping insulin delivery at the appropriate time, actually mitigate, reduce, and eventually prevent hypoglycemia for our patients. So this first step of climbing up my mountain shows that we're at about 13 patients per 100 patient years will experience a severe hypoglycemic episode. We proved this statistic in our STAR-3 study, and actually has been proven again in the control group of our ASPIRE study, our VAO or 530G study in the United States. Why is hypoglycemia something we all want to mitigate or prevent? I think you know the answer to that. It is a serious complication and one that can lead to significant morbidity and even mortality for our patients. So as we climb up there, we've developed obviously the right platform. We've developed, it's been our philosophy that we have to be the company that can deliver it all. We can deliver the hardware, we can deliver the software, the support, the educational materials, the ability to onboard your patients, and that's what we've been doing since we've gotten our sensor augmented pump platform. And as we go, that first step was the threshold suspend, your VAO R530G in the United States, and now we're going even farther to predictive low glucose management, and then ultimately to closed loop, where for both VAO and 640G, we're stopping insulin delivery. Awesome step to take, a significant advancement in our path to the artificial pancreas. But when we're done with 640, the next big step will be not just stop insulin delivery, but can we also deliver all of these insulin doses, micro boluses as we're going to call them, that will make up the basal delivery of insulin, and also participate in giving those boluses around meals and for correction doses. So that's our journey. We're going to climb that mountain. It's been arduous so far, but we're going to get there. Matter of fact, we're there with 640G, and we know that by doing that, we've made a significant difference for people with diabetes. And as a pediatric endocrinologist, I'm critically interested in the evidence build. So we had a great evidence build for our threshold suspend VAO system, from user evaluations to randomized clinical control trials to now our ability to look at its use out by people through our CareLink system and show that what the average person using this device, our VAO system or our 530G, in real life, they mimic the exact efficacy and safety issues that we saw with our clinical trials, our randomized ASPIRE trial as well. So we've got lots of advancements in building the evidence. Our ASPIRE trial, our in-home trial, was probably one of the biggest trials we've done, and what we'll be ready to replicate for 640G, and obviously when the time comes also for our closed loop systems. So the ASPIRE trial was a randomized control trial looking at sensor augmented pump, one with the threshold suspend turned on, and the other with no ability to turn threshold suspend on at all. 247 patients on a rather significant time period of a 3-month study, so we could look at A1C at the beginning and at the end of the trial, and really looking at a number of important outcomes that showed that we could reduce the burden of hypoglycemia with threshold suspend. But that wasn't enough. We wanted to not just reduce that burden, we want to get close to trying to prevent hypoglycemia. So that's the real rationale behind the 640G system. The reason that we now have a predictive low glucose management system, and one that we're really quite excited about. But before I get to that, I just want to tell you that the threshold suspend, the proof was not just by a large clinical trial sponsored by Medtronic, but also one done in Australia in Tim Jones' group with Trang Lai when she was with his group out in Perth. And they did a randomized control trial lasting 6 months, actually showing that in a very hypo-enriched patient population with hypoglycemia unawareness, that they could markedly reduce severe hypoglycemia as well as moderate hypoglycemia. that there was no deterioration or change in A1C, no episodes of diabetic ketoacidosis, and a 3.6 times less likely to have a seizure, a coma, or a need for third-party intervention using the threshold Suspend. So I think we are continuing. There's other investigators now around the world interested in doing further studies, other indications with threshold Suspend, and we're helping to support some of these studies so that, again, we can be concentrating on getting you more and more evidence as time goes on. But then now, at this new kind of device, this new advancement for our patients, we do have emerging evidence. We have a first trial done. Of course, we did a lot of modeling trials, a lot of in vitro testing of the system before we went to the first trial that was done, called the PILGRIM Study, done by Thomas Donay and his group in Germany, where they took youth, exercised them to the point of hypoglycemia with a 640G system on. It was not exactly the same system, but the same algorithm that we're using, and showed that with a predictive algorithm running in the background, looking at a 30-minute time period of when hypoglycemia would be predicted to occur and shutting off 30 minutes beforehand. So that's what the PILGRIM study did, and it showed that there was a significant now prevention of hypoglycemia. 80% of the episodes that could have led to hypoglycemia were averted by stopping insulin sooner. And then, of course, the beauty of the system is it doesn't have a set amount of time in which insulin delivery is stopped. It has another algorithm to turn the insulin back on when glucose is recovered and we're predicted to still be in a normal glucose range in the immediate future. So that study was our real proof of principle, our feasibility study that showed we could go on with this device and continue to make a big difference. We're looking at investigators around the globe. We have them in the United States, we have them in Europe, and of course we have them throughout Australia. Always looking for more investigators so that we can understand how these devices really have their impact around the world. So as we start to climb back down that mountain, we have first our VEO or our R530G system with the threshold Suspend. Then comes our ability to show, with this great evidence build that we've done, that we can reduce the exposure to hypoglycemia. After that, we have further reduction in hypoglycemia, getting close now to prevention rather than just mitigation with our 640G system, our predictive low glucose management. And we're going to keep climbing down that mountain. New hardware as we're going to deliver to you with the 640G system, a new pump, a new sensor, and as well, obviously, a lot of new software behind that. And then we're going to keep going until we get to the closed loop. And that's our promise to you. We're busy, again, around the globe and rather excited about this ability to introduce more and more advanced technology for our patients. So let me now concentrate specifically, with that background I hope, specifically concentrate now on the 640G system. MiniMed 640G, a brand new pump platform. We've already had enough exposure, again, around the world with this pump platform to understand that the patients, as well as providers, really view this as a significant step forward. Easier to use for our patients, more appealing, a bigger screen, better colors, everything that you'd imagine could be achieved with advancing technology. So it is like everything we've done, it is a true system. It has been evaluated as a system and out in clinical trials and of course sold as a system. So it's got our new pump platform. It's got the next generation sensor, our Enlight enhanced sensor. It's got new software so that you can understand how these episodes of shutting off the pump and turning it back on are affecting your patient's glucose and insulin delivery. It's got our new, in collaboration with Bayer, our new Bayer meter and again, a brand new system all put together with the software that will enable us to come close to preventing hypoglycemia. So our design philosophy was really, I think, as you can imagine, quite rich. We wanted to develop and keep advancing every part of what we'll be delivering to you. So we looked at simulations over 1 million patient days to understand how this algorithm of shutting off in a predictive manner, turning back on, how that really will work in real life. It's such an advanced algorithm that we came up with a new name for it. It's called the SmartGuard algorithm, and SmartGuard because it's protecting against hypoglycemia. And then, of course, resuming insulin delivery when that appears to be the right thing to do. We've done extensive research on the product attributes. Really, again, quite excited about this. Usability studies, formal studies to assure that the patient can understand how to use these devices. That helps us better develop our education materials, the insert for the device when it's sold to somebody, and of course meeting all the safety and efficacy product specifications that you'd expect from any big company, and hopefully we know you expect from Medtronic MiniMed. The MiniMed 640G system with a SmartGuard is the most advanced breakthrough really in diabetes care, putting all of this technology together, providing advanced protection with some personalized convenience. I mean, much more ability to personalize how someone's lifestyle can be enabled by the functions of the pump. An improved design, so we think there is advanced protection, enhanced convenience, and an improved design. I couldn't personally be more excited about anything than I am right now about the 640G. I've had enough experience with this system to know how excited people are and how thankful they are to see that this automation, this ability of the sensor delivery of what the glucose value is, the interstitial glucose value, can be used by the pump through algorithms to better control insulin delivery. So the SmartGuard system is really meant, again, to protect against hypoglycemia while making all the usual insulin delivery advances of pump therapy, so the boluses, the basal rates, as you'd expect. SmartGuard is an exclusive technology to us, and we're really excited to be able to brand it. We are hoping that it will help prevent severe hypoglycemic episodes by automatically stopping insulin when the sensor glucose value predicts that a low glucose will be achieved if insulin delivery continues. We can avoid, as a result, some of that hypoglycemia leading to hyperglycemic rebound. Why do we see that hyperglycemia after hypoglycemia? Part of it is physiologic, response of counterregulatory hormones, but most of it is a patient's response to feeling so horrible when they get hypoglycemic that they want to over-consume carbohydrate. So by turning off it before you get to that severe low value, turning back on at an appropriate time, we're hoping that we will really be able to enable patients to much easier keep their glucose values within the target range. And it's personalized protection through the day and the night with multiple time periods that settings can be individualized over. If somebody's active in the afternoon and sedentary in the morning or stays up late at night, they can adjust how and when the threshold they desire, and they can adjust this over actually 8 time periods throughout the day. So far, we've seen about 93% of those who use the Suspend feature in their pump felt more secure managing their diabetes, knowing about that hypoglycemia protection, getting a little bit perhaps more aggressive with the hyperglycemia, and therefore getting more values into the target range. So let me talk about how this pump is actually designed to be set up. It's a little intuitive in a number of ways, but obviously has to follow a set menu for the setup of when you want things on and off and at what levels. So of course the first user setting is that you want to turn on the SmartGuard feature and the low limit range, so it will be looking to look at a low limit range between 2.8 and 5.0 millimole, and it will be able to be adjusted in 0.2 millimole increments. So the Suspend by sensor options are suspend before the low, so that's a predictive low glucose management capability. You could suspend on the low, which is like threshold suspend of our VEO system now. Or of course you could only have sensor alarms and no suspension for a segment of time throughout the day if you so desire. The resume, there's an auto resumption dependent on sensor glucose values. And the maximum that the shutoff can occur is for 2 hours. This has been something I think that we have found to be important, that there's a maximal amount of time that insulin can be shut off. And again, we don't want to deviate from 2 hours as a maximal amount. It can always be back resumed manually if the patient hears the alarm, decides they want to treat their hypoglycemia without suspending insulin. They can turn back on basal insulin delivery whenever they choose to do so. And then there's multiple time segments throughout the day, so you can set these different limits and different settings throughout the day and night. And only one suspend feature can be used in each of the time segments, but you can arrange it so it meets the activity level of the patient throughout the 24-hour time period. So here's an example of how this actually works. So suspends on a prediction of hypoglycemia at a time horizon of 30 minutes. So if I set my low limit at 3.3, I actually may shut off my insulin delivery at 5.6, for example. And then once I have recovery, there's automatic resumption of insulin delivery, and therefore we're automating it turning off, and we're automating it turning back on. So let's get a little bit more granular. So here's an example of suspends basal insulin because the sensor glucose value reaches the low limit. This is an option. You can set the low limit and say, I want to suspend on low, not having the predictive capability turned on. And then what does this look like differently if I do have the predictive capability turned on or the SmartGuard turned on, is that I would suspend before the low. 30 minutes before the algorithm predicted I would hit that threshold, and I will shut off. The minimum amount of time I can be off is 30 minutes. I can, once I shut off, if I don't hit the low, I can not have to hear an alarm. But I will always have to hear an alarm. The patient will be delivered an alarm if they actually hit their low limit. So here's another example. So we will suspend basal delivery, and it has to be within 3.9 millimoles of the low limit. So once I'm within 3.9 millimoles of where I set that low limit, it's a possibility that I can suspend insulin. And again, it is within a 30-minute horizon, a predictive horizon of when I would hit that low limit. So here's an example of some suspension that occurs. I can be alerted when I shut off, or I actually don't have to have an alarm or an alert at that point. So it's up to the patient what they decide they want to have. But again, I must always be alerted if I do hit that low limit. That is not a settable alarm, that is a fixed alarm at the low limit that we're trying to avert. So here we go, no low limit, automatically stopped insulin delivery. Now I see that my sensor glucose value is starting to recover. I must be off at least 30 minutes. If you have a shorter time period, the device potentially can turn on, off. So a 30-minute fixed minimal has turned out in all of our modeling and an actual real patient experience to be a very valid amount of time as a minimal amount of time that suspend can occur. And so once I've hit that 30 minutes and I've got now a sensor glucose value that is rising, I can turn back on basal insulin delivery. So when it turns back on, I have the option to have an alert at that point in time telling me that I resumed my basal insulin delivery. So here's another example. Is the longest I can keep it off again is 2 hours. So if I have been in suspend for 2 hours, the insulin delivery will automatically be turned on. And at this point, I've had a 2-hour suspend. I can't exceed that, so I will go back into insulin delivery. But one of the beauties of that prediction is I'm shutting off higher than my low limit, and it's likely that I won't actually have to be off the full 2 hours before I get a positive rate of change of the glucose value again, and therefore am able to turn insulin delivery back on automatically. The alert will always occur when an SG is auto-resumed after the 2-hour limit. So again, we did this PILGRIM study as our feasibility study to show that what we had modeled in over 1 million patient days was valid. We are now in the midst of many other studies. We've finished them. We've shown over and over again, including in a large study that has occurred, and is another study occurring now in Australia, that shows the benefit of this 640G system. It is the next real advance in automation for our patients. So we feel that there's personalized convenience in this system. It's been inspired by, as you can imagine, years of discovery in our centers at Medtronic, and inspired by years of feedback from healthcare professionals as well as from our patients. What do they really want? They want their technology to be intelligent. They want their technology to be easy, to be convenient, and to be able to meet their individualized lifestyle. But now we have these added features. We've got a discreet and easy way to do a remote bolus from the meter itself. We heard for years that patients wanted that, and now we're able to deliver that as well. We have preset bolus and personalized basal patterns as an option, so that the patient can, when they're eating the same thing that they eat every day for lunch like I do, I don't have to go into my bolus wizard, I can go to a preset bolus. Programmable reminders, so that if I know I've got a problem at some point, I can put in a reminder so that I don't forget something that's important for my diabetes management. And of course, probably one of the most important things I think for all of us is the alarms are actually louder than they had been before, and the volume is adjustable. Going into a big meeting, you can obviously just go to vibrate. Depending on what you want to do, now you can set the volume of those alarms. So a lot of advancement. We've got a new meter with new capability in our partnership with Bayer, a new pump hardware. I know you're going to like it. It's more intuitive, it's more modern looking, it's got a bigger screen, it's got multiple colors, and we think we've developed a menu that will be much easier to teach and much easier to use. So the design is kind of exciting. The 640G system was really designed with patients in mind. Not always something easy to do, and particularly our long history at MiniMed as being the first real pump company out there delivering. It was a gradual focus more and more and more on the patient. And now I think we would like to be viewed and like to consider ourselves, and we're working very hard to say that our real primary focus is the patients themselves. So we've got an ergonomic design for right and left-handed users, more intuitive navigation through our menu system, full color, auto brightness displays. It really looks like we've entered the modern era with our new pump. And of course, waterproof, so that you can do all the things you want to do, run around, go to the beach, and be able to continue to use pump therapy. So in conclusion, again, I couldn't be more excited about anything than I am about our 640G system. Perhaps in the future I'll be even greater excitement over when we finally deliver the closed loop. But until then, and up until this point, this is the most advanced pump system that's out there. It's a system that is refreshed in every possible way. A new meter with auto bolus capability, a new pump with so many advances, next generation sensor, and perhaps the most important, the SmartGuard feature, a new algorithm that we feel will really help protect against hypoglycemia and hyperglycemia, with the ability to shut off in a predictive mode before you get to that low value and turn back on once you've achieved a glucose value that's back into the normal range and predicted to still be there. We've gone through a lot of iterations. We've done tremendous studies. We've worked as hard as we could to deliver the right system to you at this right time of enhancing diabetes technology for people with diabetes. I hope you agree with me. I'm sure you will, and I look forward to having you join our Medtronic MiniMed family with this latest addition to our family that will make the biggest difference yet in diabetes management through technology. So thank you all for your attention, and I look forward, I hope one day, to hearing from you all as to how you've used the system and seen the advantages of how technology can be added into that pump, those algorithms, and again, new hardware, as we go down our journey in the artificial pancreas technology. Thank you all very much.